Hi, welcome to Hot Mom's Dinner Club. We're now on bin 15. So we have again 4 more meals. 4 meals for 4 people under $50 always. All right, so let's get started on our 4 meals of the day. First of all, we're going to start with a ham and potato soup. So we've got a diced ham and potato soup. We're going to serve that with a cheesy stuffed bread blossom. So instead of just making a grilled cheese, I'm going to cut the bread like you see the onion blossoms. Cut it like that. We're going to stuff some cheese down in there and we're going to bake the whole thing. Serve that with the soup and a little bit of a cucumber, tomato, and onion salad. Next, we're going to move on to Southwest steak quesadillas. So the quesadillas are going to be served with onions, peppers, and mushrooms sauteed in with the steak meat. And then we've got some melty cheeses and some cheddar cheese that we're going to put in that. I'm going to serve it with some avocado, chopped cilantro, and just a julienned iceberg lettuce and diced tomato. And our third meal is going to be ham tetrazzini. We're going to do a tetrazzini with spaghetti noodles, some diced ham as well. We're going to put lots of vegetables in there, asparagus, mushrooms, peas. We're going to mix that in with the sauce, and we're going to briefly bake it just to brown kind of the top of it. And we're going to serve that with just a little salad. I had intentions of buying a whole ham and having some for sandwiches for lunch, and then dicing it myself for the tetrazzini and for the soup. However, it was quite a bit more expensive to buy the whole ham than just to buy the couple packages of diced ham. That's kind of all up to you on that. Like I said, my intention was buying a ham, slicing some of it off for sandwiches for lunch, and then dicing the rest. You'll probably have bread left over from meal 1, so you could have some of your leftover bread for meal 3 or meal 4, which is beef tips with rice and asparagus. So we're going to take the same vegetables that we had in the other steak dish, meal 2, and we're going to saute those onions, peppers, and mushrooms up with beef tips with rice and asparagus on the steak. I had intentions of buying just beef tips and then cutting them down a little bit smaller for the quesadillas and then leaving them as tips for the beef tips with the rice and the asparagus. Again, that was going to be a little bit more for me to do, so I bought a piece of London broil that I'm going to cut myself for both of those meals. So with all that said and done, let's start on meal 1. Everyone I have ever made this soup for just absolutely loves it. So I'm going to get started on meal 1. That's our ham and potato soup. I'm going to start by sauteing my onion and my celery and a couple cloves of garlic. Make sure you save your scraps on these vegetables for homemade stock. So then after I get all my vegetables sauteing, I'm going to make the roux. I'm going to put in the chicken stock in the milk. And then I'm going to kind of get that all at least heated up some and the roux kind of cooked out, and that's when I'll add in the potatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything sauteing first, and then while that's sauteing and while my liquid is coming up to the boil, that's when I'm going to dice my potatoes. So I'm just going to add in a little bit of oil. I'm going to start with the onion and the celery and the garlic. This is just going to get seasoned with salt, pepper, poultry seasoning, and nutmeg. So our vegetables have sauteed nicely. I'm going to add in the butter, let that melt. Then I'll get my flour in to make the roux. I'm going to deglaze with the chicken broth. I have homemade chicken stock here. I'm going to deglaze with that, and then I'll add in the milk after that. I went ahead and diced the potatoes while the vegetables were sauteing. I did 3 medium-sized potatoes. I just did like a small to medium-sized dice. You want to make sure that all your potatoes are about the same size so they cook evenly. Flour in. Let that cook out a bit, and then I'll add in the broth. I'm going to add our ham in toward the end. I won't be using this whole pack, so I'll have some left over. Like I said, I had the intention of cutting my own ham, but this was cheaper, so I went ahead and got that. So I'm going to put that in toward the end. My broth is starting to thicken up. You can see that. Most of the flour bits have cooked out because you want to make sure that you don't have any clumps of flour in there. I'm going to add a little bit more chicken broth and the milk in. I'm gonna season it up with a little bit more salt and pepper. If you're using store-bought chicken broth, you already have some sodium in there, so be careful not to over salt it. I've got the homemade, so there's no salt in that as of yet. I'm gonna put a little more seasoning in here, add my potatoes. I'm gonna let it simmer, and then basically we're just gonna add the ham toward the end. And when your potatoes are done, the soup is ready. So meanwhile, we're gonna start on our bread and our cucumber salad while that's working. So now we're going to start on our bread, and I'm just going to basically cut almost all the way through it. And then we're going to turn it the other direction and go this way. I put this in the refrigerator overnight, and that's why it's fairly easy for me to cut right now. And I'm going to stuff cheese in the middle. I have our melty queso cheese for the quesadillas. Also, I've got some of the Italian mixed cheese as well. That's what I'm going to stuff in here. I'm going to sprinkle it with Parmesan cheese and Italian seasoning, and then we'll bake that. I just lightly sprayed that as well with some of the canola oil. That's going to hold it all together and give it a little bit of shine. That's going to go in the oven. I'm going to whip up the quick cucumber, tomato, onion salad. I've just got a cucumber here. This one's pretty big. I may not even use all of it. A tomato here I'm going to dice, and I'm going to do a half julienne on just a little bit of this onion. Then I'm just going to toss it with Dijon mustard, red wine vinegar, olive oil, and salt and pepper. Easy peasy. Let that sit while we get the rest of the stuff ready. We'll toss it one more time, and that'll be ready to go. All right, so our soup is finished. Our bread's out of the oven. I just let this set for just a couple of minutes. The cucumbers had wilted enough. This salad, I also use this exact same salad recipe. I add in oregano and feta cheese, and this is my Greek tomato feta salad recipe. I didn't put any feta cheese in this because this is kind of supposed to be more of a palate cleanser anyway, because you have a rich soup here. You got super rich cheesy bread here. So I kept this cheeseless just with that bite of vinegar in there with a little bit of fresh to contrast all the richness. Just kind of wanted to show you the soup. It's really hearty. The potatoes just got cooked through, and the ham simmered in there for a bit. And then to serve the soup, I just put it in a bowl. I sprinkled it with some of the cheddar cheese that we have and some chopped fresh parsley. And then there's that bread. Oh my goodness, does that look great? So you got your gooey cheese bits inside, your baked crusty cheese on the top. This bread is an awesome idea if you ever have like a fondue party. You can cut the bread just like that and toast it off. If you were doing fondue, I'd probably keep it cheeseless since you're going to be dipping it in the melted fondue. But that's a great way to present your bread if you ever do fondue on a cold winter night. All right, meal one. So now we're moving on to meal two. This is our Southwestern steak quesadilla. So we're going to start by sauteing off a vegetable medley. I'm going to put some julienned onion in that. I'm going to do some julienned green pepper. I'm also going to show you on the green pepper. I'm going to cut it into half, and I'm going to go ahead and do all the peppers like that. I'm going to save some of these uncut for the beef tips, the last meal. And then on the end little pieces, that's what I'm going to dice up. I'm going to throw some of this diced in with the julienne for the quesadillas, because that's getting stuffed in the quesadilla. You're not really going to see it, and there's no reason to throw all these little tidbits away. So we're going to use that in the quesadilla. and save some of our nice middles for the beef tips. I'm gonna go ahead and get my mushroom sliced as well. We'll get the steak out, we'll cut that up and then toss that in with the vegetables. I'm gonna season mine up with some garlic. I'm gonna throw that in with the vegetables and the steak while it's cooking. And I'm also gonna add in some fresh cilantro that I have from my garden. If you don't have fresh cilantro, you can just always add in some extra cumin. I'm gonna put cumin in mine as well. You can just add in some extra cumin, season it up with salt and pepper, of course. If you wanna spice it up a bit if your family likes it a little spicy. And our green onions, you can throw some green onions in there as well. I'm going to start sauteing all of my vegetables. A little bit of oil. I'm going to start with just the onion. Now you can see I've got my julienne green peppers, but then I also have those diced up ends that I did. A little bit of sliced mushroom. I got garlic and I got the cilantro. I'm gonna let this cook down just a little bit longer, and then I'm gonna throw in the mushroom and the cilantro here in a couple minutes. Meanwhile, I'm gonna start on our steak. As I mentioned, I went in prepared to buy beef tips. However, this London broil, again, was just about the same price as last time when I bought it. It was the best deal, so I'm gonna have to do a little bit of cutting on this myself instead of just having the beef tips ready to go. But no biggie, it won't take but a second. I'm gonna save about 3/4 of it for the beef tips and just use about 25% of it for tonight's meal. So I'll probably lightly trim it up a bit. I'm gonna cut the beef for the quesadilla way smaller than our beef tips since I have that option. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut up the beef for the beef tips. I'm gonna put it in a bag and then I'll probably marinate it the night before I actually go to cook them. So I'm going to finish that up with a small dice on this for the quesadillas and then a larger dice on this for the beef tips. I just tossed in our mushrooms and I'm going to toss in our small pieces of steak. I season it up with just a little bit more salt and pepper and cumin. And when your steak is cooked about medium, you can pull it off. Or if you think you need to cook it a little bit more, then that's fine. While this is finishing cooking, I'm going to get our tortillas, our cheese, and our lettuce and tomato salad ready to go. So on our tortilla, we're just going to put a little bit of oil in the pan. Move that around. I'm just going to do mine in halves this time. I'll sprinkle some of the cheese on there. Layer in some of this deliciousness. I'm going to close it up and then I'm going to brown both sides. And while I'm browning off the tortillas, I'm going to work on julienne and the lettuce and dicing the tomatoes. You can also brown these off in the oven if you don't want to do them all on the stovetop. So there is meal 2, the Southwestern steak quesadilla. I topped mine with the avocado and I've just got a little bit of a julienne, lettuce, and diced tomato salad there. I just diced up like 1/3 of the head of iceberg because I wanted to save the rest of it for meal 3. But I left it up to you all. If you want to buy sour cream or make guacamole, you have some wiggle room in the budget to add an add-on here. So just choose whichever best option you and your family would enjoy. Southwest steak and veggie quesadillas, meal 2. Now I'm going to start on meal 3. That's our ham tetrazzini. I've already got our spaghetti ready. I'm going to go ahead and take that down now, and I'll start on the rest of the dish. I'm going to start by sauteing off the onion, celery, and the garlic. I've already got the spaghetti cooked. Okay, you do not want to overcook it because this is going to get baked as well. So I cooked it al dente, so that way when it's baking, it can soak up more of the delicious sauce that we're making. Basically, I'm going to have a whole bunch of vegetables in here. Onion, celery, garlic, mushroom, peas. I'm going to show you how I'm going to add in some of the asparagus into here. And then we'll have the asparagus spears for the beef tips. Meanwhile, we're going to get these sauteing, and then we're going to make our sauce, which is going to be a base of a cream of celery soup, and then some chicken broth and some milk. I'm going to add some cheese in here, top it out with breadcrumbs, and bake it. So this is our asparagus. We're going to trim off the ends of it, and this part will definitely be garbage because these are very hard, coarse, okay? But then we're going to kick this on the side a little bit. And we're just going to cut some chunks. We're going to throw this in the tetrazzini. And we'll save these for our beef tips. Got our vegetables sauteing here. We're going to go ahead and toss in our asparagus. I'm going to start working on our sauce now. I seasoned this all up with salt, pepper, and nutmeg. Now we're going to rinse this out with a little bit of milk. I got 3/4 of a cup of chicken broth here. And then we're going to add some milk to thin it down as needed. We're going to lay it out on the casserole. We're going to top it with more cheese, Parmesan cheese, breadcrumbs, and fresh parsley or fresh scallions. And while the tetrazzini is cooking, I'm going to make sure I have the salad ready. Just a little lettuce, tomato, and cucumber salad. You also may have some of the cucumber, tomato, onion salad left over, and you can put that out with this meal as well. So our tetrazzini just came out of the oven. It's got a nice crusty exterior, nice and creamy on the inside, loaded with vegetables and ham. You've got your salad back there. You could have some leftover cucumber, tomato, onion salad you want to throw out instead and save this produce. And then you should also have your bread left over from meal 1. So this is meal 3, ham tetrazzini. And now for the finale. We have our beef tips with rice and asparagus. I've got my rice cooking here. I've got my pan getting super hot. I'm going to start by searing off the beef tips. Then I'm going to remove them. I'm going to saute off the vegetables, and then I'll toss the beef tips back in at the very end. You can add some soy sauce or some Worcestershire sauce as you would like into that as they're finishing, okay? Not in the beginning, but at the very end. We've got our beef tips. You should have your beef tips already cut and marinated. I marinated mine in garlic with thyme, a little bit of Italian seasoning, and I'm going to sprinkle the salt and pepper on it right before they go in. I did not pre-do the salt and pepper. You don't want to put salt on prior to cooking it. You don't want it to sit in the salt because the salt will pull the moisture out of the beef and start cooking it. Also, on this bin, you really want to save your vegetables. Look at how many vegetables I have here for the stock. I've got celery, I've got onion, 2 different kinds of onions, and some garlic scraps. So make sure you save your scraps on that. For the vegetables, I've got the onion, the green pepper, the mushroom, and a little bit of garlic. And I'm going to top the dish with some of the fresh cut parsley when it's all done. So the rice is getting close. I'm going to start with the beef. And then I'll cook the asparagus. When I start cooking all these vegetables, I'll drop the asparagus in here to blanch. I've got the water already heavily salted there for the asparagus. As all of my sides of the beef tips have been browned, I'm going to lay those out on the plate. Again, back in the same skillet, I'm going to start sauteing the vegetables. If your skillet does start to caramelize too much for you, you can always add in a little bit of water to release some of that caramelization on the bottom. And voila, we have our beef tips. We've got our sauteed onions, green peppers, and mushrooms in there as well. Serving it with our rice and our perfectly blanched asparagus. Meal 4, beef tips with rice and asparagus. So there's Bin 15, Hot Mom's Dinner Club. So we started off our 4 meals with our ham and potato soup. We made a big batch of ham and potato soup, serving it with the cheesy blossom bread and the cucumber, tomato, onion salad. So this is just a nice alternative to your traditional soup and grilled cheese. You got your bread there, you just pull it off and dip in your soup. And then you've got that crispness, that freshness from that cucumber, tomato, onion salad. Then we're going to move on to meal 2. That was our steak and veggie quesadillas, using the same steak and vegetables from meal 4. So we got steak with sauteed onions, peppers, and mushrooms in there. I've got them wrapped up in the quesadillas. I topped it with avocado and then just some julienne, lettuce, and tomato. Then we're going to move to meal 3. That was our ham tetrazzini. You got your crispy topping and underneath your creamy pasta loaded with vegetables and ham. Got salad there too. You also may have leftover cucumber, tomato, onion salad. And of course you should have leftover bread from meal 1 for meal 3 and meal 4. And holy cow, look at this. I don't know if that cow was holy or not, but these beef tips are righteous. So your family is going to flip out when you serve this to them, especially on a weeknight. This looks straight out of a fine dining restaurant. So many basic cooking skills in this dish that you have now mastered. So who says you can't have steak on a budget? We have 2 meals with steak here, the quesadillas and the beef tips. Plus, there's so much food here, nobody is going hungry this week. So there is this week's menu, Bin 15. Hey, if you like what I'm doing here, give me a thumbs up or subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also check out the website, Hot Mom's Dinner Club, for the full lowdown. You can download recipes, grocery lists, the full shebang, Hot Mom's Dinner Club. So this has been 15. Thanks for joining me today.